So where are we? Yes. So if there's anyone who has the right to protest, well, everybody does, is the sister of Joe Campos Torres, Janie Torres. And despite Janie Torres and Nicholas Neighbors, who we have here today, protesting peacefully in downtown Houston, they were arrested. They weren't arrested for throwing bricks. They weren't arrested for fighting anybody, fighting with the police. The police accused them of obstructing a roadway, but they did not obstruct a roadway. There was spaces where people of the public could pass right by them, go back and forth. There were spaces between them. They did not obstruct any roadway. Yet, Chief Acevedo came up with a plan, and that plan was to arrest and inconvenience as many people as possible who came and protested after the main marches. This was after the main marches. And that's what they did. They arrested mass people to inconvenience them and jailed them, sometimes for up to 3 days. And then they had to come out on bond and charged with a crime. What did this do? Of course that discouraged them from coming back. Are they going to come back on another day and get rearrested and then get in trouble for being rearrested because they're already out on bond and another charge? No. No one's going to do that. So what you had was massive suppression of freedom of speech in Houston, where George Floyd was born and where George Floyd is buried, right here in Houston. And the city of Houston, on one hand, creates the Joe Campos Torres Memorial, yet on the other hand, they stomp on the people's rights to protest and talk about that very wrong that happened to Joe Campos Torres. So we're here today to right that wrong. We have filed a lawsuit, a federal civil rights lawsuit, on behalf of 10 separate individuals whose right to freedom of speech was squelched. They were arrested. They were put in jail. This was at the height of COVID and the COVID fear, and they didn't have proper procedures. This frightened a lot of people. A lot of the officers weren't wearing masks. They went to the jail. A lot of people weren't wearing masks. And in some instances, they took your mask from you. I do not know why, because that is a medical thing, and you can see that it's not a weapon. It's just a mask. Why would they take your mask? So this mass arrest of people was just atrocious, and it is not anything that we should put up with here in the city of Houston. So these 10 people have come forward on the eve of on the eve of George Floyd's death, 2-year anniversary, and have filed this federal lawsuit. Now, I have brought a couple of people from the community to speak, and first we have Shelby Stewart.
My name is Shelby Stewart, S-H-E-L-B-Y-S-T-E-W-A-R-T. I am a retired Houston police sergeant, 28 years, and a civil rights activist. These revelations are extremely disturbing. First of all, because a police officer needs a pretext, a predicate to arrest someone. He has to see a crime being committed, or there has to be a witness that sees a crime being committed, or a complainant. Now, for 700 people to be arrested and for the district attorney to throw the charges out is very disturbing, because it indicates that they probably did not have the pretext to arrest all these people. And that's very scary, because when you have police officers creating situations where they arrest people that have not committed crimes, it gives you an indication that the greatest threat to your freedom in this country can be the lone police officer who makes a decision to shade or break the law, to put you in jail when you have not exactly committed a crime. Kim Ogg threw all these charges out, which means that either you had someone at the top make a decision about the arrest. At the command staff level, captain, assistant chief, or the chief. And so, at this point in time, Chief Fenner should let the public see the body cam footage of what happened on that day, so that the public knows exactly what happened. These type of actions erode the faith and trust that the public has in the police, and I think they need to straighten it out.
Thank you very much, Shelby. Although we have filed a lawsuit, and I've instructed my clients not to go into this facts because we have a lawsuit pending, Janie Torres, if you have a question of her regarding like how she feels or what she wants accomplished by this, we will entertain a question like that. So if you have any questions for Ms. Torres.
Well, I noticed in the lawsuit that there was mention of you had to live in your car for 2 weeks because of COVID conditions and the jail where you were taken. Can you speak a little bit about what that experience was like what that looks like on a practical level, and what it felt like emotionally?
Well, first of all, it was way more than 2 weeks. Looking at like 25 days total, because I took the first test, and upon further investigation on COVID, I took the test a little too soon. I didn't give it a good incubation time period. So I did those 14 days, and then I retook it. So then I was in quarantine another 14 days, so like a total of 25 to 28 days. It was horrible, but I was, I believe I was in a state of panic, anxiety, a lot of depression, fear for my kids that I had inside the house. Very sad that I was going through this type of situation. I was very sad. Yeah, it wasn't something that I had prepared myself to go through.
Thank you. We also have with us Nicholas Neighbors. He's also one of the plaintiffs, and once again, I don't want him speaking about the specific facts, but what he wants accomplished maybe, and how he feels about his affair. Final questions. So, Nicholas, what do you want to get accomplished by this lawsuit?
Well, I'd like for people to at least be able to see and to know exactly what happened, and for that to be written down in a record. So I think going to court with that would accomplish some of that. Because a lot of what was seen was on TV through maybe a helicopter lens, or the narrative was pushed by the police in the city and not the people who were actually there.
What were your thoughts on going down there? What was your original, or I guess what was your reasoning behind going to do the protest? What urged you to do it? I mean, we're talking about George Floyd.
Yeah. Of course, the injustice you see on TV, and not just George Floyd, but the events that happened before that for decades, centuries. But it was almost, I would say, I wouldn't say jubilant, but there was a huge presence there which you don't normally see in Houston. It was we were marching with the mayor. We were marching with Acevedo 1 minute, and then we're getting arrested by him the next, looking for our cars. And I think that just as a citizen, that's not the city I pictured or wanted.
Thank you very much.
Can we ask Janie those same questions as well, just about general sentiment around the arrest and the aftermath, and then also the things that drove you to show up in person and protest in the first place?
Well, what prompted me to show up that day, to show support for George Floyd, and as well as all of the other cases in the past, even decades past, and the future cases as well. This is not only a Houston problem or a Texas problem, this is actually a nationwide problem. Here in the States, we have so many other cases in California, New York, nationwide. And this type of attention does need to be, these type of cases do need to be brought up, and we have to help some way, somehow, to bring justice to these cases, because a lot of these cases do not get justice. The cops just get away with it freely, with with nothing at all, no justice at all for the family. And we don't remember, the people do not remember about the family that are left behind grieving, such as myself, after so many decades. Nobody goes and checks up and see how they're doing 10 years from now, 20 years from now. How is the mom doing? How are the other family members doing? How are the young ones doing? Nobody goes and checks up on them. This is why we do these things.
Thank you very much. If that's no further questions?
I have some questions for you.
Okay,
That's
sure.
all right.
Yes.
So the lawsuit says that you're seeking trial by jury for any, I forget what the phrase is, but like.
All issues triable by a
all
jury,
issues triable by
which
jury.
are most issues like
Yeah,
damages and liability.
And then seeking damages also, but there's no specified amount. So I wanted to ask if you wanted to provide more specifics on what issues you're seeking to have tried, whether you want to try them in criminal court, civil court, and then how many damages you're seeking.
Well, this is a civil case, and civil cases can provide for monetary damages, and they can also provide for injunctive relief, and we will be asking for what's called injunctive relief, which is an order telling the city of Houston, to not engage in certain practices in the future. However, just like in any personal injury case, for example, people lost work, they were imprisoned, mental anguish, fear of COVID, fear of the police, the inconvenience. All these people, most of them had never even been arrested before. Now I could go look and see that they had been arrested before, because being arrested, even though you're not convicted, that is a public record. So a lot of these things are very traumatic for people, and we will be seeking compensation for all that trauma. And in some instances, they put on cuffs too tight, so there's pain, just like you would in a personal injury case. Some people experience numbness in their wrists and their hands, and so there's that pain and suffering as well. So we will be seeking compensation for that.
I was in that march also. I marched also that day. I had my mask on. I didn't see the people getting arrested. I heard about it, and I heard they put them on buses and took them to the HPD gym. But I never saw anybody get grabbed. I mean, but it was probably 60,000 people out there.
So I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around the actual specific day we're talking about.
Sure.
There's a few days when we did marches that day. But this is the one you mentioned.
Oh no, actually, the 10 individuals who are named in this lawsuit, they marched in various times, not in the large marches, but in smaller ones, like after the large ones. Some on, I believe there was some on Friday, some on Saturday, some on Sunday, maybe even some on Monday. So the George Floyd was not just a couple of big marches; it was also a bunch of small marches where people got together, sometimes after the big marches, and kept on, marching and expressing themselves, or on another day. So these people represent several of the smaller marches.
So it's not a specific one.
That's correct.
Well, kind of going off that, my other question was going to be, how did you compile this particular group of 10 plaintiffs? And given that you said there were something like 700 similar arrests, is there any potential here that this turns into class action? type of suit?
There's always that potential. However, I won't bore you with. I'll bore you with the law. Well, no, I won't want to bore you with the law. Other than say, class actions are very difficult to maintain, and so this lawsuit will be for these 10 individuals. But hopefully, we'll get some changes, and this will affect anybody who wants to protest and express themselves about police misconduct or any other matter legally in the city of Houston.
So how did this group of 10 plaintiffs come together? Because it seems like they were all at different protests, different days, maybe not necessarily knew each other personally.
Oh, well, I'm a well-known civil rights lawyer, and so they got arrested, and a lot of them said, hey, that doesn't sound right, and there's Randall Callen, and he's a civil rights lawyer, let me call him up and see if, and so that's how basically it happened.